One of the major roles as a personal representative will be paying creditors, taxes, expenses, heirs, and beneficiaries. And there's a process, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today.
Important to note that the taxes need to be paid first.
Right.
You know, Uncle Sam doesn't like to wait. And then creditors and all the expenses before any beneficiaries are paid.
Right.
And so sometimes people have a feeling that beneficiaries get paid first, but all of these other folks need to be paid first. And with that, a little holdback.
Exactly. Holding some money back for future expenses even after the probate is completed, because it could be 9 months to a year before the entire probate is completed after the sale of the real property, the home. And many of the beneficiaries may be saying, hey, you know, where are the funds? Where's my proceeds?
Right.
And, you know, then that's where you have to explain to people that they have to wait until the probate is over, except if someone desperately needs some funds, like in a case where someone has to move out of the decedent's home and they don't have the funds to find a rental property. There have been times where the attorneys, the probate attorneys, have asked the probate courts to agree to confirm that $10,000 or so could be released to one of the beneficiaries early.
The important point about that is it does have to be approved. It's doable, but
Correct.
It does have to be approved. What you don't want to do is just do it
Right.
without the approval. There's a number of instances where it's a reasonable thing to look at.
And even as you're going through that process, you know, what a lot of the beneficiaries will not necessarily know is that in many cases, like property taxes are in arrears. And so it can adjust. And so again, holding that back is usually one of the reasons that, especially when we've seen big swings up or down in real estate. And so it protects the estate because it's very hard to get money back to pay it. So,
Very hard.
right. So that is, again, one of the common things where you'll see. But if someone's asking, why am I not getting all the money getting dispersed? That's a very wise reason.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
that's a case where could be a year later that a tax bill will come in, a property tax bill, and you want to hold the funds back because it's very difficult to go back and ask everybody for the funds back that if you disperse everything.
Yes.
So I usually recommend holding back $20,000 until a year is passed so that you know you're covered.
So you want your team helping you, certainly your attorney, and you'll want a good financial planner as well, because one of the things when real estate is involved, depending on when you sell the property, if it's within a 365-day period of the death or after 365 days, there could be capital gains implications. And that's just, there are too many factors to say whether it will or won't, but it's another reason why you want to plan carefully on what's paid out, what's held back, to make sure that all of the financial obligations there's enough money to settle those.
Getting your team in place early, because we had a gentleman, Bob, who we helped that, again, people are going through that grieving process, sometimes denial of not really wanting to deal with all of it. And as you get to that 1 year point, all of a sudden realizing there could be, his tax advisor said, you could have some capital gains implications. And they're like, okay, we want to sell this house quickly, but it wasn't insurable. It wasn't, there were things that had to happen. And so again, just realizing that you're going to want to have a team, be talking and not let it catch up to you. And all of a sudden be crammed with, making costly mistakes or not really realizing the impact. So that was, again, unexpected if you're not going through it, to realize that there is a time limit on that.
So one of the other questions that's pretty common is, funeral expenses have to be paid, mortgage payments need to be made, and utilities, all those things that are important to protect the assets.
The insurance, homeowners insurance.
HOA, all those things, and things might not be set up yet to do that. Letters of administration may not be available yet. Bank accounts may not be completed. So we've had examples of that. What are some of the creative strategies there?
Well, the executor or the administrator can, I would talk to your probate attorney, but can actually use their own funds to take care of maintaining the home in whatever fashion that might be, before they actually have the bank account set up.
Correct. and they have an accounting for what they do take care of, so they are reimbursed through the probate process. And the big thing that comes to mind in all of this is most people think when the probate process is done, you're done. And what isn't realized oftentimes is there are payments that still have to be made that are still going through a process. So much like when you buy your own personal home, there's a supplemental tax that will come up the next year to bridge the gap between where you started paying your taxes at the rate of the previous owner to your current ownership. That's going to happen with the sale of this home as well. And that's one of the key things to hold money back for. So again, having the right players on your team to advise you to have those things in place you would never think of. And that eliminates some of that surprise, negative surprise, so that you aren't saying, boy, I wish I would have known that before. I could have planned better this way.
Another person on your team is a good insurance advisor, because a couple things come up. One is, since you are charged with protecting the property, you would need to check and see, but oftentimes the current insurance may not continue with the home's vacant for a period of time. So again, you'd want to understand your options. Another one that catches people off guard right now is if you live in an area or the home is covered by flood insurance. They've recently changed all the pricing, and homes can be grandfathered, but if they miss a 30-day payment, then they lose all that benefit, which even if you're selling the home, it can make it much harder to sell at a much higher insurance rate because it lapsed. So again, these are all details that professional on the team is going to give you all the advice, so that again, you don't end up making an unintended, having an unintended consequence that could impact what you could sell the home for, what it's worth, or whether or not it's protected should something happen.
And in the end, how much the estate has to disperse.
Correct.
So having the players, as we've mentioned, and the guidance so that you can make good choices so that the estate is protected as you are the steward of its assets and it's dispersed wisely. That's the purpose of having this information up front.